Just a quick introduction into the session. First and foremost, karibuni to the session once again. And in today's webinar, we are going to have a really exciting conversation around culture. We want to get to the ins of understanding the complex yet strategic journey of culture change. And as we get into this insightful conversation, it is my pleasure to guide you through the series of the engagements that we are going to have with the panelists today. I will let them introduce themselves in a minute. But before we dive in, just let me see. Sorry, I was just checking who is not on mute. So let's mute our mics before we begin the session. Let's ensure we mute our mics. If your mic is not on mute, please mute as we're about to start the discussion. I see we have 72 participants on the call. So let's mute our mics and then we can just quickly begin the session. So allow me to just quickly introduce myself. Duncan Gao is my name, just in case we've not met. And it's my pleasure to serve you as the moderator for this session. I have a background in learning and development. And I've always been fascinated by the topic of today, organizational dynamics and development, and especially when it comes to culture. Just to share a quick fun fact about me, and I will let also the participants, the panelists, to share with us a fun fact. In my undergraduate, I did a course in insects and parasites. And I think just looking back, because I do not practice that, just looking back, I think that taught me about adaptation and resilience, especially in these times that we are in. And just to share a quick statement or quick purpose statement about me, I think my purpose statement is just to create learning experiences that spark insights to prepare individuals for opportunities through any or learning interventions that you can think about: coaching, mentorship, training, facilitation. And I'm really excited to be here with you as the moderator. So let's dig into the conversation. So I have panelists that have joined me today, and I will let them at this point switch on their cameras. I see Damaris has already switched on her camera. Jane, Grace, you can help spotlight them for me. Aha, good. Now I can see all of you. And I want to bring you in this order. This is how I am seeing you on my screen. I see Jane first, and then I see Grace and Jenga, and I also see Damaris and Dongwa. And this is how I want you to introduce yourself. I will give you 2 minutes each just to quickly introduce yourself. And I want you to do a quick introduction and also share with us a fun fact about yourself, and especially something that we do not know about you. So a quick introduction and then fun fact about you. And let's begin with Jane Ngethe.
Thank you, Duncan. Good morning, everyone. As Duncan says, my name is Jane Ngethe. I'm a trained teacher, so that's where I started. Then I moved to HR, which is what I have done for quite some time. And recently I added law into the bucket. Currently I work for Unga Group as a group HR and legal director. Really excited to be here this morning to engage in this conversation. A fun fact, I think I'll move away from work stuff and say that one of the things that I enjoy doing is dancing. However, I always have a caveat that enjoying doing something is very different from knowing how to do it. Eh? So when we meet, don't ask me to dance and expect me to be very good at it. Eh? But I enjoy dancing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. It's a pleasure to have you. It's an honor to have you in this conversation. Karibu sana. And I'll quickly move to Grace and Jenga. Talk to us, Grace.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace. I hope I can be heard. My name is Grace Jenga, trained HR background, HR through and through. Currently, I work for Parkland Sports Club as the head of HR and admin. I'm also very excited to be here today so that we engage and learn together. Culture change is quite it's a topic that really touches my heart. So I'm hoping to also learn even as we proceed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Grace. It's really, really good to have you in this conversation. And I'll
I'm
move
sorry.
swiftly.
Fun fact. I've missed that out.
Aha, you have missed a
Yes,
fun fact. Yes.
I am a very tall woman. I am 5'11", 5 feet 11 inches tall. I've always asked God why He took away that one that would have made me 6 inches tall, 6 feet tall. Thank you.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you. Thank you very much, Grace. Yes, and so we move swiftly to Damaris Ndungwa. Karibu sana, Damaris.
Hello and good morning. Thank you very much, Duncan, for the invite. It feels really good to be this side of the bench. As you've heard, my name is Damaris Ndungwa. I'm really happy to have you all in this, call. And let me say, I am your neighborhood. Like most people call me now, a corporate culture catalyst. People in Audi like calling me that. But I'm also called the queen in team building because I started my L&D career in designing programs, especially for building teams. And I'm really excited to be here. As I always say, my background career is in human resource. So I'm a certified human resource practitioner in Kenya. But incidentally, I've spent this is my 16th year in practice of L&D and full gun to organization development right now. So you bet I got a knack of transforming challenges in organization to solutions that mainstream success for people and organizations as well. And just people keep on asking me, why did you just branch so early in your career and how did you do that? And the quick thing that I think inspired me is just like most of you have worked with really good people, exactly, people who will fund you to success. And also very bad, or for lack of word, bad people who really will dig you down. I've worked in great enabling cultures and seen what that can do, and also very toxic. Really, you feel like, I remember some time I even got ulcers for just working with one boss. I didn't know what to do. And this really inspired me to, make a mission or a commitment really to pursue something that can enable me to try to enable organization culture, the experience people have there. So we always go, wow, on Monday instead of, kind of a bad mood. So that's me in a nutshell. Many things sometimes in many places, like I'm home and you bet I'm a mom also. As well as, a career woman who is also a wife. So that's me in a nutshell, Duncan. I'm here to learn, like Grace has said, as well as Jane also share insights on what I've been doing in culture and OD regarding this issue of building high performance culture, the process, called the complexity, who is responsible for what and all that. So I'm looking forward, Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Damaris, also just also for inviting us into this session. And now you see the reason why I wanted to be on this side and you on that side. There's a lot to learn from you, a lot to learn from the panelists, and it's a great pleasure to have you all with us. Just
I
to
forgot to say
get
my
back.
fun fact though.
You didn't, and I keep on forgetting fun
I don't
facts.
like
Sorry.
I don't like my family knowing this because they might spoil it. Sometimes I like driving alone because when I like a new music, you know, ile music imekuja, I like just repeating it and repeating it, playing it over and over again, and they don't like, or most people don't like that.
Yeah.
So that's something I really like doing also. Just between you and you guys.
And I hope they've not heard about this, because they will start now crashing. But thank you very much, Damaris. And Jane, I see Norbert is saying you have to dance. I don't know when. I don't know, Norbert, if you want Jane to dance at the end of this session. We'll see. We'll see. But I think Jane is going to dance with the conversation today. That I am sure of. And so, as we are coming in, let's mute our mics so that we are not interrupting the conversation. Put in your question, put in your comment, anything that you feel is really touching you in the conversation. Just post it in the chat also for the other people that are coming in, for them to just speak and see how they can also learn from that. And I'll pick your questions, your comments at the tail end of this session. So do not worry. I'll sort you out. I will ensure that your question or any comment that you put in the chat has been addressed. And just to move swiftly into the conversation, I'll just be engaging the panelists in this conversation. And we'll start slow, and then later on we'll dig deep into the conversation. And panelists, feel free also to just engage. I'll be posing questions to specific people. So if I post a question to Damaris will respond to it. But then if you feel that you need to chime in and just put in a voice to it, feel free to let me know, and you can also add on to that. And just to begin this conversation, I want us to start with the basics. We might be talking about very tough things, and we're talking about culture change, culture transformation, and we have people that we have invited today. They might not be in the HR space, and this might be a foreign word to them. So I'm very curious, and I'll start us off with just bringing Jane into the conversation. And Jane, I want you to talk to us about your understanding about company culture and how you think it impacts organizations. So Jane, talk to us about your understanding of company culture. And feel free to define for us what it means from your perspective and how you think it impacts organizations.
Thank you, Duncan. So my understanding of culture is basically, sorry, Duncan, you had muted me. So I was just saying that the basic understanding from my end, or from my perspective, is how we do things around here. It's like the personality of the organization. So it's everything about what is happening in the organization, the people, the behavior, how they relate to each other, how they make decisions, how they treat their customers, the processes that they have, the attitudes that they have. So it's the totality of what the organization is, yeah? And the key component of that is the people. In terms of the impact is huge. Culture impact on an organization is massive. You've all heard of this saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if culture is wrong, or culture is not supporting the strategy, then you will not move as an organization. You will not achieve the objectives of the organization. So culture is very, very, very important, and it is everything to do with the with the organization. There's a survey that was done by Bamboo HR, and they said that 94% of the people who were interviewed said that culture related to the organization's success. So you can see how impactful and how important culture is. When your culture is right, then you will have the right levels of productivity. You will have the right kind of engagement in the organization. You will have the right treatment of the customers, so customer experience will be top notch. Yeah, you will, it impacts your bottom line. So having a proper culture that is supportive of the goals of the organization is really, really critical. Duncan, I don't know whether I have answered your question.
Yes, yes, spot on, spot on. Thank you very much, Jane. And from what I'm getting from you is just basically this is the personality of an organization, the behaviors, the attitude, how we do things in an organization, and the impact is immense. Organization success, productivity, engagement, and I love that. I would also like to just bring in Grace, and Grace, I want you to take us sort of like a notch higher in a different tangent, so that we can get to understand, moving from the definition of culture, the impact. So help us understand what are the key challenges that you think HR face when trying to influence company culture, and if there are any challenges, you can talk to us. If there are any challenges, how can they be able to overcome them? Grace, if you can hear me.
I think Grace is mute.
Hello?
She might need to unmute. Yes.
Unmuted. Thank you so much. Jane has introduced the culture and said culture is the personality of an organization. So the first challenge that HR may face is people not understanding the personality of the organization that they are in. So for that, you need to do a lot of training for people to understand where you are at and what actually, or where you need to be in terms of culture change. Something else I know HRs will face as a challenge is lack of clarity. So this is the personality we currently have. What is the personality we want to have? That is the first question. So if there is no clarity in terms of what you want in terms of culture, it becomes a very big challenge because people will not know what it is they are working towards. So one of the things that an organization or a HR can do to overcome this challenge is to just ensure that you are very clear on what it is you want in terms of culture requirement. The third thing I'd say is resistance to change. We all know that changing is not easy. We are told by analysts that a human being changes their behaviors after 21 days of consistent practice. So it is a process, and we need to accept that it is a process. So you need to get the buy-in of the people in the organization to understand that the culture we were having is not working for us. We need something that is going to work for us. What are we going to do? What is in it for all of us in terms of what am I going to get? What am I supposed to do? etc. etc. Another challenge I'd also say HR space is unrealistic timeframes. People think culture can occur overnight, and yet it is a whole process. You need to dig deep, find out what has been working, what has not been working, how to enhance what has been working, how to stop what has not been working, and how to bring in something new that is going to work. And at the end of the day, it's important to understand that we are different. So people will move at different paces. So you need to be realistic in terms of the timeframes that you set. Another shortcoming maybe I'd put across is strategic shortcoming, where as an organization, you know you want the change, but you are not ready for it in terms of providing what may be necessary. For example, you will need to provide support to the people. Support may be both mental, psychological, even providing the tools for that change that you want. At the end of the day, the strategic part of it comes into play, where you need to be ready before you actually bring in the idea of culture change to the people. And maybe the last one I'd like to put across is inadequate training and support. Sometimes you find people do not actually understand the essence of culture in an organization. So you need to start from the basics, where you train people on what culture is, why you need to change, let them understand what culture is, let them understand the process of change that will be required, so that at least at the end of the day, you smoothen out the bumps that are in the process of change. I hope I have answered the question, Duncan.
Yes, yes, spot on. Thank you very much. And
Duncan, if you
you
can allow me.
yes, Jen, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, maybe just to add one other critical aspect to add to what Grace has talked about. Sometimes the feeling that HR is the owner of culture, where issues of culture are left to HR. That's a great one. Everybody in the organization has a role to play in driving or developing the kind of culture that is going to help the organization to move forward. But where everybody feels that culture is HR, then you have a problem. Because when you look at the executive team, they're the ones who set the vision, the culture vision. Yeah. Then HR, as much as HR are the catalyst of that culture, or the champions to drive that culture forward, the executive have a really important role to play in terms of setting the vision for that culture. And then the managers who implement the initiatives that are put in place to drive the right culture, they also play a big role. And the employees, because they have to live, they have to adopt the values, they have to get the right attitude to fit into that culture. Everybody has a role to play, and it should not be seen as just a HR agenda or a HR initiative.
I totally agree with that, and I love that. And just to reflect on what you're sharing, Jane and Grace, that one of the key challenges is resistance from change, and this is from employees, sometimes from people managers or leadership. And then how we can overcome this is through, and you've really talked about this, ownership from all levels. We talk about the employees, talk about the people managers, talk about the leadership, and this can be done through, of course, effective communication. We can do, we can have conversations, we can have town halls, we can have education, and just to foster a culture of openness and collaboration from all the parties that you've mentioned. And I totally agree with that. Thank you, Jane, and thank you, Grace, for that. And just to also bring in the voice of Damaris. And we've pointed out the role of leadership just a bit. I think Jane alluded to that. Damaris, in your opinion, what role should leadership play in driving culture change, and how can HR collaborate effectively with leadership?
Thanks very much, Duncan, for that question. I completely agree from the frustration of Grace from the HR perspective to what Jane is adding in terms of the misconceptions. I think she's spoken very closely about one of the biggest misconceptions about culture and culture change issues, ni maneno ya HR, but we will see where and who is responsible. Incidentally, I always get this question, but who is responsible for culture in the organization? I don't know whether you also get that kind of a question. And I bet most people will always point to the same person who is the HR. And is that true? Is the one who is responsible for culture the HR? Well, we will be able to answer and crack that today. And I want to say the answer I found in my 16 years of practice in OD is everyone is. Everybody, I think Grace has, Jane has actually said it very clearly. Everybody has to plug in, and like some things in the organization, culture is for everyone. But however, there are specific responsibilities that must have some people plug in for them to flow. And I say with big confidence, leadership is the vision bearer for the culture. And I say this because there are three things I attribute responsibility of leadership to any change, even if it's not culture, because we have many other changes within the organization. And the leadership is the one that will hold the key to how we shape it. And how we shape it is determinant or dependent on the blueprint we have. What is this desired? I think Grace mentioned the desired. What is this desired? This thing that we will define us in the most ideal way we want. That comes from a strategic perspective that sits at an executive level. So molding and designing the culture, or the architect of the culture, is a leadership. That one we can confidently say. And this is not to say that the HRs don't sit in leadership positions. We do. Therefore, that becomes one of our responsibilities as well. Secondly is, besides being the architect who designs the blueprint, then we are also the conductors. We have to set the tone. You hear most people say we need role models and, model the culture we want. And I tell you, if this is not coming from the top consistently, you will have trouble, even if you're the HR implementing this, because leadership has also the responsibility of, conducting or setting the right tone for the third culture. And thirdly, they have to inspire action, which is champion. They are like the #1 champions of the culture. And those three are pertinent responsibilities of leadership on culture change and any other change. If you do not tell the organization, your executive teams, or your heads of departments, or your heads of teams, this is, I think the people who seem to have joined right now, maybe let's just mute them. Yes, there. Thanks very much for that. I think that's Duncan. Then we will have an issue, because that means we'll be figuring where we are going, what you're doing as we go, because we lack the leadership voice of where we need to go. Therefore, the architect, the design, the pointing of the vision, like it has been mentioned by one of my colleagues, comes from the leadership. Then consistently showing the rest, how do we live this? That's modeling. And thirdly, championing actions. Now, I know we've heard from Grace where HR comes in. And let me tell you, the human resource sort of is a default point for steering and managing the people asset, which is also a critical asset for the organization, just like the other assets organizations have. It's very important. And for that matter, only makes the office or the department or the HR a very critical player in the change, especially in the culture change. They become #1 collaborative entity for the change. And therefore, that I think that becomes confused a lot by who drives the change, simply because the HR leads the people aspect or asset for the organization doesn't mean they are actually the default point for the culture change to drive it. There is still an executive or leadership. Just like the way we have the business strategy is the way we define the ecosystem under which the culture is going to thrive. Because somebody has said culture eats strategy for breakfast. I also add operational excellence, which is how the strategic intent gets transformed into the actions that feed our strategic goals. Therefore, it's not going to succeed, and then makes culture very critical and a matter of interest to the leadership. Incidentally, a research that was, I think it was published in 2019, said the responsibility of culture and how you turn the culture in organization sits in the boardroom, which is very true. Those who've done culture change, for them to really accelerate, gain traction very fast, you know where to get the buy-in from. It's at the boardroom to the executive, and that makes it very easy for the HR to actually mainstream all the initiatives measure, evaluate, align, build engagement with the people, now to translate it to what we want to see. Now, after saying those critical key 3 elements that leadership has to play, let me also say this. There are also primary roles that I say culture works with a principle called inclusive or inclusivity principle. It doesn't work like leaving anyone behind. We can introduce a time management, or let me not use that one because it's very people oriented. We can use an IT software for maybe interfacing the company and customers. And that decision can be made as an executive, implemented at ICT, and we have some memos and things, and not badly off we go. But unlike that kind of a change, any change that involves people, then there needs a lot of involvement of the people for 3 reasons. You want people to understand and get the buy-in from them so they can commit, and they can also engage with it. And without committing, knowing with clarity what is in it for them, they are not likely going to jump in and not going to play the game. I've seen Leila saying rigidity is a problem with change. And that's how it starts. When you don't involve the right stakeholders. I hope we'll be able to talk about the process down there, hopefully, if we get time. But number 1 is know who your stakeholders are and involve them. That is the inclusivity principle, because involving them makes them own and commit to the change that you have, and therefore implementing it, it's like saying this is our own in year 2, so it becomes easy to run with it. So for those who are experiencing rigidity as the biggest problem, because resistance is rated as one of the biggest problems that makes change fail. As the executive set the vision for the change, by the way, there is no change that doesn't have a vision. And if you're championing a vision at any change, and then you ask where are we going, you don't know, then you need to post, because you have to have a destination or a vision for the change for you to communicate everything else. So as leaders create clarity on the vision, then what is HR doing? You know, we have defined what we want to have. For example, if we are changing our customer service experience for our organization, the vision is what? We want to have what is it that you want to have? That has to come clearly from the executive team or the executive of whatever organization you're working. It has to be very clear. So when you pick that vision mantle, you almost know what you're going to do in terms of initiatives, activities, the way you're going to communicate, who you're going to engage, and at what level are you going to make sure you evaluate and also assess the progress. So those, it's like saying you give us the clarity of the strategy, and kind of we manage and execute. That is the collaborative element of HR at that level. So we play in collaboration with the leadership and, of course, the rest of the leaders, because I don't assume it's one department kind of organization. Like I tell you, I imagine in Jane's organization, there are many functional heads who run different functions. And you don't want to just say you are the HR running the people asset. You've got to involve all these people for that to really work. And involvement means at every level, they are hearing you, they're understanding you, and they're giving you feedback on that. So I would say, what role should leadership play? I think those critical 3 elements is very important for the key process of change to really move swiftly, which includes understanding where we are. I think Grace said that very key. We may understand where we want to be, but if we don't know where we are, we're likely going to make a mishap step. Where we are is what tells us what we need to retain, what we need to throw out. In other words, what are we shifting in this change we are talking about? And that is very critical. You might be throwing something that has been working for you and sustaining for you for some time, which is really good. Or you might carry something that will bring you down in a week and you were not aware. So it's very important to assess or evaluate where you are. And then that cannot happen if you don't know we don't have the support, the clarity, the blueprint of where we need, what we need to achieve and where we are going from the leadership. And this defining or understanding where we are is where the HR comes handy in being able to mainstream engagements that will tell us in terms of leadership, in terms of communication, in terms of understanding our values, in terms of engagement with our customers. This is how we look like. And these are the things bringing us down. So this is how we need to change, because it helps us create a baseline. And I think with those three, Duncan, because I'm sure I can really talk and talk. Allow me to pause there.
Thank you very much, Damaris, and I love that how you're just bringing in the aspect of leadership. You're talking about them as architects, as conductors, and how they come to inspire the teams, and also how they come to offer direction on where we are going. And you also on this other side, you're also juxtapositioning this with the role of HR in steering and managing the different teams. We have the people management teams, we have the leadership as well, and just putting all this into perspective and bringing in the collaboration of all these teams that we have mentioned. And you've talked about clarity, and I think also Grace and Jane alluded to that we need to get clarity on what we are, where we are coming from, where we are going, and how we are going to do that, and some of those measures that we are going to take. And I totally am in agreement with that. Thank you very much. And I see comments coming in fast and furious. Fiona is saying culture is the personality of an organization. I see a couple of questions. Paul has a question, but I will pack those questions till the tail end of this session. So ensure that you're not forgetting the questions that you're putting in. Feel free also to just gather confidence, because some of the comments I see, there's a very huge comment from Zaverio. I think I will just bring you in to verbalize later on. But just to read out a comment from Norbert. Norbert is saying, build a collaboration culture when building a new culture to defeat resistance from the onset. Most humans are wired to resist changes, and they do not understand. So win and lead your team and make them part of the new culture that is being introduced. When you have your team on board, they will own the cultural change. And we totally agree with you, Norbert. Thank you for putting in that comment. Thank you, panelists, and I want us to take to go deeper into the conversation. Let's mute. I don't know who is not unmute. Yes, I think they're now on mute. So I want to dig deeper into the conversation. And I want to bring the voice of Jane into this conversation. And we are talking about all these changes. We are talking about how we need to prepare ourselves as HR, the role of leaders. But then when we go back, I just want to go back a bit and ask, so when can HR, we now know our role as HR, we've known our role as leadership. So when can HR or leadership know that there is a need for culture change, and what's the role of HR in advocating for this kind of change? So you've identified. So how do we move from here? So let me bring you in, Jane, just to help us demystify that concept for us.
Thank you, Duncan. I think one of the key roles one of the key points to note is that culture is not static; it's dynamic. And the reason why we are talking about culture is because culture supports the strategy of the business. We don't have culture just for culture's sake. We don't have culture sitting in one box and then our business objective sitting in another box. So when you notice that need for change of culture, when that culture is no longer supportive of your business, when the culture is outdated, when the culture is not aligned with where you want to go as a business, or when you have a new business strategy, or you have changes in the organization. For example, you have mergers and acquisition and you're bringing two cultures together and you need to change to get one that will move you forward. So the business, where the business is at and the changes that have happened in the business inform the need to change the culture. Yeah, so that is one. So the changes that are happening, the changes in the organization, the changes in the structures, the changes in the processes, those inform whether you need to have a change of your culture. Now, coming to the role of HR. Damaris has talked about it quite well. Now, one of the things that she has talked about is the issue of having a vision for that culture. So yes, the executives, and HR is part of the executives, they're looking at the vision, where we want to go. We were here, so where do we want to go? Yeah, in that conversation of looking at where we are and where we want to go with regards to our culture, HR plays a collaborative role, supporting the leaders in defining where we want to be or where we want to go as far as culture is concerned. Yeah? The other role that HR plays, it's really in communication of what this culture is to the wider organization, communication, and having that whole communication loop closed in terms of this is where we want to go, this is where the changes we want, and getting feedback, because you're dealing with people. It's not something that you will just come like an ICT thing and you're gone. But as Damaris put it, it's where you need buy-in from everybody. So that communication to the different stakeholders is really, really important. And HR has to take a lead in that communication. The other thing is counseling of leaders. Damaris talked about role modeling, and the people who are going to role model are the leaders. So how is HR counseling those leaders in terms of getting the kind or the right kind of model that then the employees can look up to, that the employees can emulate, So if the leaders, there's something that is happening there that they need support, then HR plays a critical role in that. And this comes with the issue of skilling, upskilling the leaders, particularly in the soft skills, because culture, a big chunk of culture is really about how people feel, how people are treated so that they can thrive. Like my group MD says, take care of people, they take care of business. Yeah, so really looking at what is the employee experience, and HR has a big role to play in terms of upskilling the leaders so that then they're engaging the employees in the right way. Yeah, so HR has to have a finger to the pulse of the organization. By virtue of being in HR, you're really the bridge between the people and the leaders. So you get to hear both ends of the story. So in terms of really defining, coming up with initiatives that are going to push the right kind of culture, you are in a good place. And it's you who really needs to guide the organization in terms of those initiatives, in terms of the things that are going to move the culture forward. Yeah. So just to give an example from UNGA, when you're looking at culture, you really look at the foundations. And I think one of the panelists talked about the foundations. And the foundations, it's really about your purpose as an organization, your values, and really looking at them to see, are they really driving the kind of strategy that you want to have, or the kind of business that you want to have. So for UNGA, we've just gone through a change in strategy, and we've come from an environment where, UNGA has been in existence for over 100 years. Yeah. So really set in its ways. The kind of environment you're having now is very vibrant. So you need something that is very vibrant. And our values for a long time had the acronym STRICT. Yeah. Responsibility, trust, respect, innovation, integrity, and continual improvement, and teamwork. And that STRICT, just that acronym, it had an impact on the way the organization was. When we looked at, when you did a survey just to check on the pulse, one of the things that came up was fear. And fear, you're talking about strict. So there's that fear. Yeah. For the Gen X's, I mean, you can work in a strict environment, but for the millennials and the Gen Zs, they want something that is fun, an environment that is fun. Yeah. And if you have to use your people, if the people are the ones who are going to drive the organization forward, then you really need to look at them. What do your people want? And also the environment. What does the environment want? You're not the only player in the market, where you can determine terms. You have other competitors. So if you really want to have an impact in the market, you need to change your culture, the way you do things. Yeah. So looking at our foundations, then we saw, okay, if you're going to have these people engaged, you have to bring fun into the equation. Yeah. So looking at our foundations, we said, okay, fun is one of the things that you're going to really look at. Yeah. You're no longer looking at your internal operations because you're the king in the marketplace. You're fighting with other people. So what do you need to do? You need to be consumer-led. So consumer-led is something else that we have put in. So those are just a few examples of the things that you look at. Our strategy is moving in this direction. These are the foundations that we had. We need to change. This is what we need to change. So how do you need to change? What do you need to put into the organization? And then you have initiatives to drive those items. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Jane, for sharing, and especially the case studies, and from what I'm getting, I think the question was, how do you get to see the need of change? And you've talked about if the strategy is outdated or the culture itself is outdated, if we have a new business strategy, if we are moving into a new direction, if we are changing the processes, the structures in the business, then that's an indicator for us that we need to change it. And you've talked about, again, just rubber stamping what we've talked about in the previous session on the role of HR as collaborators, as the ones to support in communication. And also you've also added a layer to it, and you're talking about counseling of leaders, just offering support, reskilling, upskilling on some of the items that they need to know, even as they are as they are driving this culture. And I love that analogy that you're giving from the case study, actually not an analogy, but the case study in Unga, moving from strict to fun, and some of the things that you needed to change along the way. Thank you for that. And I still want to dwell into this conversation around communication. And Grace, let me bring you into this conversation. How important is communication? How important is employee feedback? How important is engagement in driving sustainable change? So what are the strategies that we can use as HR to implement or to foster this? So talk to us about this and help us to demystify more about communication in the culture change process.
Thank you, Duncan. When you look at communication and culture change, actually, culture change is all about communication, basically. What I'd say is that communication and culture will reciprocally influence each other, because culture will not take place without that communication. What is it that you're communicating? Jane and Damaris have spoken to us about knowing where you are at, knowing where you want to be, and ensuring people understand. So all this is an element of communication. You have to communicate. So for me, I would say simply communication will clarify the purpose of the change that you want, the goals of this culture that you want to introduce, how it's going to affect everyone. And when you say everyone, you're talking about all the key stakeholders. You're talking about the leadership of the organization. And here we have the owners, the management team, the employees themselves. It also, the communication will encourage participation, will encourage contribution, will address concerns from all the stakeholders, will reinforce even progress and even celebrate achievement. So basically, communication is key in culture change, in driving culture change. When you talk about feedback, you have told the people where you are at, what is required, what they need to do, etc. Then you need them come in and provide the feedback. So basically, the feedback part the employee feedback part brings in input from the people. You will understand the opinions of the people. You'll even get suggestions that will work better for the organization based on even the work experience that these people have, the experience that they've had in the organization, what they'd want to see in that organization. So basically, even the feedback part also is very key. I'd say engagement will help you align. It helps you align the purpose. So when you communicate and people give feedback, you are now able to align and find out, where are we? Are we on the same level? Are we headed in the same direction? So engagement now comes in and delivers also the direction and the expectations of all the stakeholders, and also creates a shared form of identity and commitment to the culture change. So I'd say communication, employee feedback, and engagement is very, very key in driving culture change. In terms of how HR can implement some strategies in terms of, so that it can HR can help foster this in an organization, I'd say some of the strategies that a person could use is ensuring there are open lines of communication, where people are confident enough to give their feedback and there'll be no repercussions, because that is the first key thing. When people give feedback and there is that after effect, especially a negative after effect, believe you me, you have lost people. You have lost people. They'll not be feeling like they own the process, the culture change process. Something else is keep on carrying out surveys. Keep on carrying out surveys to find out what people are feeling about the process, what more they'd want done, what support they'd require to be able to achieve the change faster, what their feelings are generally about the process and how you're conducting the process. You also need to choose, we normally don't use this word very positively, but you use influencers. You can choose influencers amongst the employees or even the leadership. There are those people who are charismatic, who draw people to them. Use them to also advocate the change that you want. And this will work very well for HRs, especially because sometimes the employees will view you as a separate entity to the employee entity, and yet you are an employee. But once you get that culture change agent in, who will go to the ground and speak to the people, believe you me, it becomes smoother because they understand what the people feel. They understand even how the people talk on the ground, and they will be able to push the culture change agenda for you. Lastly, I'd say involve all the stakeholders and continuously seek feedback so that you know where you're at, what changes you also even need to make in terms of the strategies that you have employed in terms of the culture change, and just get to have a feel of who is where, who has been left behind, so that you also get to know which gear you need to engage next. Thank you. I hope I have answered the question.
Sufficiently. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Grace. And I think what I'm getting from you is that basically communication, feedback, and engagement is meant to just foster transparency, ownership, to bring out or to bring about a sense of alignment. And you've talked about how HR can help to foster this through regular open communication channels. You've talked about feedback. You've talked about surveys. You've talked about focus group discussions, and you've also talked about what you're talking about, influencers. And I see you're cringing when you say when you mention that word. So let me choose a better word for you. We can say champions. We can say champions who can also just support, drive that conversation. Thank you very much, Grace, for those sentiments. And Damaris, I just I want to bring you into this conversation. And you've been in this space for quite a number of years. You have a huge wealth of experience. You've had these conversations with individuals, with teams, with organizations, and I'm very curious to know, are there any misconceptions that you've encountered as you are having conversations with maybe clients? Are there misconceptions that you've gotten in this area of culture and culture change, and how have you addressed them in your journey?
Thanks very much, Duncan. I think, of course, the answer is yes, they are there, because even Jane alluded to a couple of them, misconceptions about culture, about change. And number one is that hiyo ni kazi ya HR. That's one of the biggest one. But before I come to that, a number of misconceptions, allow me to weigh into the element of communication, especially when you're driving change. Now, figure out this culture, when you're dealing with culture, which is sort of an org-wide, organization-wide change, because it touches almost every element of the organization. Then you want to ask yourself, here is a vision that we need to translate into something actionable. Therefore, how do you get the people to understand this vision? So right there, you see the critical importance of communication. And by the way, culture change, like most of the change initiatives, requires one of the critical plans or strategies for it to succeed, which is called communication strategy. You really must have a communication strategy. And this is because you're involving different stakeholders. And those who do communication in your organization, you do not communicate the same way to all the stakeholders. You have different formats, different tones of communication to different stakeholders. And therefore, it's about change now, then this becomes very important. And I keep on saying with my colleagues that the biggest fallacy in communication is that it has happened. And mark this one, because I know most people are victims of this. Simply because we had a town hall and the CEO mentioned about the change and said what we're changing, and probably 1, 2, 3 things you're changing, doesn't mean people understand. Doesn't mean your people understand what they need to do for them to plug into that change. That is one of the biggest fallacies. I know it happens even in meetings. Unaenda mkutano, and then we are addressed, you tell people, this is what you're doing. Unaita Grace, have you understood? Grace anasema, yes, sir, yes. We are together, tuko pamoja, like we say in Kenya. And after you get out there in the corridors, what we ask each other? Alikuwa anasema nini? You start asking each other out there, and what was that all about? And you said you understood. So that is one of the things we need to have into our minds, that there is a possibility that even after so clearly coming with that presentation of yours, there's a possibility that some people didn't get it. So you make it an initiative for follow through and create many diverse initiatives on how you reach people. You create many diverse media forms that you use for you to reach to different people, because inclusivity, diversity is one of the things that is in the workplace. People will consume information differently, and therefore you need to present it differently for communication to happen. The other one is consistency, and you have to do it as many times as you can. Here is where you don't say, nimeongea kuhusu hiki, because you will keep on talking about it as long as it's a new thing, especially. So if you're telling people we need to stop coming at 8 to 7:30, you will say that, you write the memo, you write the letters. On Monday, they will still have those, early adopters will come. Lakini the 45 of the other side of the curve usually have to struggle. It's like a normal thing. So what do you do for you to convert this other part of the curve for them to come the other side? It is communication with clarity, consistency, and of course using your stakeholders. Because in communication, there is something called who sends the communication, and that's very important. That's why we spoke about the role of HR, role of leadership, and many other things. So it's very important to do that, and there are many strategies which are different in different change initiatives. I think that is guided by the HR or the person who supports the culture or the change you have, and that's what we do. For example, our OD consulting. Now, are there conceptions, especially on culture? Yes. I'm not going to repeat about the HR one, but there's this one that because culture is not, it's quite a complex process. People think they're going to get rather equally monumental and big results instantly. You know, the way you say it's like a fix, it's a fix that will give us a big, results. That's not true. The more you think about culture, in fact, think about your organization culture and ask yourself, how long has it taken that organization to build that culture? You will not tell me it's a day, it's a week, it's a month. It probably is all the years your organization has existed. Now, unless you're changing one aspect of your culture, if you're changing more than 3 aspects of your culture, then it is an organization that is touching about critical principles, traditions, values, and probably even how we deliver our business model or strategy as well. And that is big, which involves changing of humans or people behavior for that sake. And change of human behavior, we agree it doesn't just happen like that, unless it's a traumatizing situation that will change you overnight. But that's not the principle under which change in the organization work in. And I think Grace also alluded to that. You will need time for people to familiarize, bind, plug in, identify their role, and act in their role for you to get the results. So it's a process. It's not going to give you immediate results. So as the drivers of change, we need to quickly get people to understand this is rather an iterative process that is going to shift some of our behaviors, attitude, beliefs, and bring in a new way of behaving and hence a new way of executing things and give us the results we want. That is not an overnight event. And therefore, when it comes to results, there have to be, progressive, like short, medium, and long-term kind of approach. But I tell you, for those people who probably are fan of suckers, like myself, let me give you that example. The suckers, the suckers where we have those very funny games happening. Sometimes I think they're magic. You must know a gentleman who was called Guy Laribarte, who was, a stilt walker or fire eater. Those ones who eat the fire. He was very famous. And this guy, after some time in suckers, he was appointed the CEO of Saki du Soleil, which is one of the companies. Incidentally, is one of the cultural export companies in Canada for years. Now, during this time when Guy came in to being the CEO of Saki, a lot of things was happening in the industry. And these things included a lot of shift from use of animals because of activism and many other things. Now, what makes this story a little bit unique is, unlike most of the leading, champions and companies for this industry of entertainment who had existed over 100 years, they were able to turn around. When he came in, first of all, he changed the business model, and he called that change, reinventing circus. That was like, the title or the tagline they used. We are reinventing the suckers. And by reinventing the suckers, what they did is they shifted the interest from, the usual market focus to people to different segments of the market, complete different direction. And therefore, Saki didn't compete with the main competitors. Number one, he didn't take their clients. He just narrowed something out of the box, and voila, things changed. And that change revolutionized. But it didn't happen overnight. It took or 20 years to build a business revenue portfolio that took over 100 years for the lead markets and globally to lead in the sectors before many other things happened recently. Now, that tells you you might have a blue ocean strategy. You know, blue ocean is where you do not compete with anyone. You render the competition irrelevant. You create your own niche, just like Saki. But either that one doesn't guarantee. You might have a monumental rather bigger than the usual competitive initiatives we have, but it's going to take you time. So that is one of the misconceptions. When you go in for a culture change, no, it's a process. And that makes you sure you aim at the biggest milestone, not the short-term milestones. Of course, people will get excited, motivated. You will see people who didn't do some things, do other things. The most important thing is sustain that momentum until you transform that into an actual behavior in the organization, such that you will not need to communicate consistent anymore. They are doing what they are now supposed to be doing. And that milestone gives you sustainability in what you were looking for, which most cases is enhanced, increased performance, or even sustainable performance. And who doesn't like to be that, especially an HR? You're already playing the game at a strategic level that time. Now, another one is, this one I like very much is, you can come in the organization and decide to impose. Yeah, mark my word, impose the culture on people. Yes. You go to a retreat. I'm sorry, how many people have been a victim of that one? Yeah, we go to a retreat in Naivasha or Mombasa. It's a called executive meeting na sababu it involves people HR kwanza amewekwa kwa hiyo team. You go strategize on the culture we want, you draw, you say the values, we retain or we change them, you change. You even say, according to our business model, now we need even to change the vision. And you come out with a very serious blueprint of your business that touches on the behaviors and values of your company. And then, because usually those kind of approaches are very brutal, of course, you're told, go communicate this to the people, yeah? This takes us back by to the title of this webinar, Can HR Fix the Culture? This is where now you're told, go now fix it. Now you will have a problem, a monumental problem of how you fix it, because you are likely going to experience something Leila called rigidity, because that is a foreign thing. And you know how human beings behave when a foreign thing is placed on their table. They don't understand it. They didn't participate in it. We are suspicious about it. Because of all that, they get suspicious about it. And that brings in a hands-off kind of approach before you even get to the people. So you see, sometimes the way we approach the change also can make it crumble or become a very vibrant exercise. So number one, I insist, unlike some changes that are just small pockets, culture is a little bit not so usual that you will come and impose it on people. And this is why. Because culture, what is exactly culture? From definition that I highly buy in from Jane is about how the values, the common values we actually subscribe to as an organization, the behaviors that we accept within our organization. Is about the way we engage, it's the way we communicate, it's the way we reward. You know, everything we do in that organization is culture. Then when you come in, that involves me, my action, my behavior, my attitude. You know, I'm immersed part of this ecosystem. Now, when you come and try to change me, that is the biggest resistance if I do not have a buy-in to it. And therefore becomes a very hard thing to even succeed, first layer, in imposing culture on people. And let me warn you, by the way, because different leadership styles, you know, operate differently. Aggressive leaders always will use pressure. If you have an aggressive manager, you know what I'm talking about. They'll put pressure on you so you can do something. And because you've just been hit right there, there's a lot of pressure, probably some threatening undertones. You have to sort of align, kidogo, seem to be aligning. But the nature of human beings, you do not operate under pressure, not even in the midterm. While you're at it, you're looking for a way of coping mechanism to get out of that pressure, because nobody operates under high adrenaline. If you sustain it a bit, because sometimes we say we took kazi, so where do we go? We get other health issues, other performance issues, and all that, because we do not operate like that. But now, because you've been put under pressure, sometimes actually it might look like it's working. You know, people are listening. People are coming at 7. Look, we have 70%. You're reporting very nice indicators there. Wait for the midterm and long term, because pressure doesn't work on human beings. Unless you build a sustainable, avenue that people have bought in, committed, and they feel they can thrive in it, you're not going to have the people in the midterm, neither in the long term. That is the risk of losing the change at the long term. Now, so you do not impose on people. You have to involve, like we said, is an inclusive principle, very highly collaborative for it to thrive midterm and long term. Now, also, I've had, and this I hear a lot, especially when I am on the leadership, executive level, mid-level meetings, talking with these leaders. There's this kind of thing I get from most leaders, on this table, that makes me think like most people think culture change is like a surface level kind of a thing where you can just introduce a perk, a kind of an incentive, or we can just come up with a slogan and sing it and write it on our letterheads and, talk about it, put it in our emails there when you're sending, and we think people are going to get the hang of it. That doesn't work, because culture, like I've explained, it's about values, it's about tradition, it's about behaviors, it's about action, it's about real things that are in the workplace. So passive things that do not link us to changing our behaviors, our attitudes, our beliefs towards a certain alignment, then it's useless, even if you put $1 billion on it. So it's very critical to understand what is a thrust for your change as you come in. Because if you come with that mindset of we made a profit so we can issue bonus, you must really understand what is the end game of even putting that bonus into place if it works. It's not a pack thing. It's not even about saying, you guys, we commit you to come up with some nice slogan, design the way we do a presentation. No, it is a real intentional deep thing about elements that go deeper than superficial elements. So that's really good. So when you come to the table also because I also see this one from champions of changes who come with cases that we need to change this into the boardroom or to the executive meeting. When you come with that mindset, then you will mislead the leadership to make most likely a wrong decision about what to do about the change. And when it doesn't work and you are the one who brought the recommendations, guess what happens? They say, oh, it's again HR problem, brought wrong recommendation, wrong data. And that is not what we're talking about again. So culture is a responsibility of the HR. I think we've spoken widely about that, but let me just give the last one I think I wrote it somewhere. It's a process nature, not a process nature, but some people think because they have done other change initiatives like team building, enhancement of team engagement, or other time framed projects. I think also culture is an event that we will, Damaris, we will have 3 days in Manzoni, and then we will, a lot of things are put there, and then we will come back to reevaluate, see the progress. Yeah. Culture is not an event. I think I've explained in detail that it's a process, and hopefully I'll be able to articulate actually the end to end. I'm happy actually Jane is here. I think she really has gone deep, like she must have gone through a culture process through the organization. So we'll get practical insights on when you talk about process, what are we talking about? It's not an event that you go and lounge and then you come evaluate. Hey, you'll be taught by Grace. By the time you come back, what you will find, with the people. So it is not an event or a time definitive thing. It is a process, and that has to be communicated as a process. Duncan, I think I've highlighted at least five. Five is usually my penta number of the most of the misconceptions at least I get.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Damaris. And I love them. I love them. I think I've tried to sum them up into, I think, three, that you can't be able to, or we shouldn't boast culture. And then once culture is communicated, it's done. And then you're also talking about how culture is a short-term game. So all these things that I'm talking about are misconceptions. So I'm not really talking about them in the positive. And then what you're talking about is that we shouldn't expect immediate results. That culture changes is an iterative process. We've talked about all the teams that are involved in this, the leadership, the people managers, the employee themselves, and then we need to have a communication channel that cuts across all these teams, and we need to have avenues. We've talked about avenues on which we can engage all these teams just to get their voice and to hear all these people out. We're talking about it being iterative. So we get opinion from the employees, we input into that. And you've also talked about how we have a role to play. Each one of us has a role to play in this whole process, and that we need to sustain the momentum until there's a change in behavior, in attitude, as we had alluded in the previous section of our conversation. And thank you for that, Damaris. And there's something that you touched, and I think it just arose my curiosity. And you talked about how, of course, it's not a short-term thing, but then I'm very curious, and I know part of the attendees today are also curious. So, and this I'll throw this to Grace. So, Grace, from your perspective, how can HR measure the success of culture change initiatives? Is there a way we can be able to measure this? We are saying it's not short term, it's long term. But then how do we ascertain that there's something that's happening, there are changes that are happening, we are moving in the right direction? Talk to us about this, Chris.
Okay. Thank you so much, Duncan. As we have agreed, culture change is a process. So even the measurement or the success will be measured as a process. So I'd say the first thing would be heightened employee engagement and participation. For me, would be one of the key successes of culture change, where you get the team wholly and fully engaged in this culture that is required, participating in it and understanding what they will be required to do. That, for me, I would term it as the first way of measuring your success. The second thing I'd say is improved feedback. How are people giving feedback? Have they gotten a sense of courage? You know, sometimes it also takes a lot of courage to provide feedback. Are your people courageous enough? Are they feeling safe enough to actually provide the feedback that is required? When you get actual feedback, and this is now honest feedback, you start knowing you are on the right path, and at least you can measure that as one of the areas of success. Something else I'd say is enhanced performance metrics that are related now to the culture change. When you bring in a culture change program, you also need to check and see what KPIs you would link to performance in terms of culture change. When I am performing my duties, what is one of the KPIs that is linked to culture change? So what are my scores to it? And not just one individual, it's throughout the organization. How are people scoring in terms of that KPI related to the culture change. I'd say for me, that one actually gives you a very, very real score and data to know your success journey towards the culture change. Something else I'd also say you'd use to measure your success is the employee net promoter score. This comes in very interestingly because you'll be able, within the employee net promoter score, you can segregate your questions in such a way that tackle the key elements of the culture issues that you want to change. The net promoter score, let me now break it down for people who maybe are not in HR, would be in case you are an employee of the organization, would you recommend the organization to an outsider or not? But beyond that, now we want to bring in other elements and ask the people, would you say we are communicating better or not? You'd get the yes or no. You'd ask, are you feeling engaged? You'd get the yes or no. Do you feel there's a better relationship between yourselves and the leadership? They'd say the yes or no. Do you feel you understand the process, you understand your role in terms of what is expected of you in the culture change? You'd get a yes or no. Now, from all these answers that you get, you'd be able also to check and see which areas you're lagging behind, which areas you are currently where you wanted to be, which areas you have actually exceeded, so that at that point you re-strategize and bring everyone back together so that you all now are on the same path. Something else I'll say as a success factor is how easily are people adopting the positive, or how easily are people adopting the new ways that they're expected to adopt. So that also brings in an element of success. And maybe when you observe the daily interactions of people, are you seeing increased collaboration? Are you seeing the elements of the culture change that you wanted changed actually coming into play? So I'd say those are some of the areas that you could, or some of the key success factors that you'd follow up on so that you know whether you are successful in your culture change journey. I hope I have been able to comprehensively respond to that question. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you, Grace, and I love that. You've talked about KPIs, how we can align that, how you can align that with the KPIs. We've talked about the NPS scores and some of the items that you can tie that with and just get feedback along the way. I don't know if there is any other comment. Do you want to add something,
Yes,
Damaris,
if
Jane?
you allow me, moderator Duncan. I love those
Yes,
pointers that Grace has brought out on how we can evaluate change, and they're really very clear, candid, practical. But I also want to add, just actually to add on something that Grace has reminded me on. When you're starting on any change, at least from what I've learned at the model we've built, it's always good to create a baseline for your change. It becomes easy, especially when you're thinking about the strategic key indicators that you will be monitoring. Of course, there are many elements that you want to see them moving into up and, of course, towards the right side. Sometimes I think the Cartesian plane in my head. Yeah, so you want to be clear on some indicators, and these indicators are not your own to keep. They should be communicated to everyone, so the expectation is very clear that we are actually evaluating our culture, building it across these enablers. One of the key fundamental things we are very particular about when we audit a culture is what is enabling your ecosystem or your culture. Sometimes organizations like calling it, what are your now success factors? And these success factors have to be entrenched to everybody, mainstreamed in the operations of every day, so that we are not pushing, but we are having it lived, or it's brought to life. And once you have the baseline, it becomes very easy now to monitor these KPIs you have across whichever stakeholder categories you have for your change. And that is where now sometimes people go for 7 months because culture is a process, or a year or 2 or 3 years. And then you realize when you come back, by the leadership also changes, like unapata Grace alienda and Deloitte. And somebody came in, but they don't know what we were supposed to evaluate because nothing was actually outlined for monitoring this change. And that helps when someone comes in, finds a whole, blueprint on what progress has been made, where are we across these elements. And another thing I want to really urge HR, because we are the fronters of this change, and we are also the top #1 collaborators and drivers, is when you are initiating your change, you do not just, not particular about the baseline, but make sure you have a framework that speaks to your culture. Okay, I know when you go out there, there are many models for culture audit that you can use. If you want to bring your values to life, Barrett is very good. If you want to just borrow from one of the out there kind of models, you want to look of culture efficiency. I mean, there are those ones which are particular for certain initiatives you want to change. But just like somebody has said, culture is very dynamic. It's like the personality of your organization. And mark that word personality, because we are not the same. Even if you do the same business that Blue Concepts does, you probably never be like Blue Concept because of some aspects. You do the business that Unga does, and I mean there are many, but they're not Unga, because Unga is uniquely Unga, you know. There's this one Unga group that we have. And therefore, not everything about models or approaches out there fits 100% within your organization. That's really good. And this one we had to learn 5 years in the OD process to realize actually what works for quotas process is not like 100% working in Africa, because this was built with the mindset of some other continent, of other markets. So what do you borrow? And our process is very hybrid and particularly built for Africa. But what am I trying to say? I'm saying have a framework, because when you have a framework, you know the clear elements you are actually after for your culture. Our model has only 8 elements, and that fits for most of the businesses, except 3 elements that tweak to fit different markets. Because like when you think about culture in government is different from culture in development world, is different from culture in business. And therefore, there are things that don't just map straight away. This framework helps you to build KPIs that are very clear, transparent, and they will not, the clarity that comes with them speaks straight to the business. Because if you're saying we are evaluating, for example, how aligned and clear our strategic direction is, that alone will tell you how our people understand, master the vision, the mission, and understand how we actually live that vision, which is a mission every day. And when you assess that, you get a certain score that is benchmarked with some comparative data we have, you're able to tell, actually, when it comes to understanding who we are, which is our direction, where we are going, and how we live it, we are at this level. And then you can confidently tell your CEO, your executive team, that I am certain 70% of the staff here understand our vision and know how to translate that vision into their work by simply using that framework. And that's how it helps. Sometimes when especially you get a consultant and you're not aware of the process, you will get to be measuring things that don't speak actually to the key elements you want to be driving. And by the end of the process, you will get a kind of a feeling that we all had this big thing, but we quite can't concretize the results. And that's a big no to the executive team. You don't want to get them there. They trust you, they believe you, and they give you the vision, but because of some gaps, you're not delivering it after investment, which is really not a good thing you want. So be keen on the framework that speaks to the elements of your culture, and then build a baseline. KPIs are really important, not to say the other ways of evaluating business. You want to evaluate, you want to observe people. That's where it starts. Are they excited? I mean, I've worked with Grace, and one of the things I was keen to know when I'm working around there is when I talk to someone, do they talk about the tagline of what this change is about? And you will hear people telling me, yeah, they say that word. I'm like, yes, it's thinking now. Now it's thinking. You know, the way I gave an example of Saki, they say we are inventing suckers. Should be something that people are actually resonating from the gate to everywhere, including your stakeholders. They actually can know, Allah, yeah, I think these people talk about this thing. What is it? Create curiosity, again, back in communication. So yeah, being able to create that framework and also creating your baseline. And baseline is critical because also helps the client, and this is a secret from this side of consulting, to hold your consultant into account. You hold them accountable for some things, because yours is, the change has to be speaking to these elements, and these elements must be moving, back to Cartesian, up and to the right. Yeah, if we were at 1-1 with leadership, we need to see the leadership moving up and to, yeah, I can see Duncan, it's making sense. Yeah, like that. If it's not, why? And then the consultant can explain that to you. Sorry, I had to speak about that, Duncan. Thanks.
And I love that. I love how you've tied that, the whole concept around framework, baseline. You've also alluded to what Grace was talking about, the KPIs and the NPS scores, and then you're also talking about us getting a look and feel of the employees themselves. Are they understanding? Are they articulating it? Are they resonating with what we are actually putting across or putting forward? And Damaris, I just want to bring you in, but then briefly, I just want you to speak 2 minutes. There's something that you touched on, and it just arose my curiosity, and you might have touched on it, I think, halfway, but then I want you to just finish up this conversation. And I'm very curious to just get to understand how especially HR can help align the cultural values with the business goals and ensure that they are integrated in the day-to-day operations. I feel like you already had started going that direction, but help us just get deeper into that in just 2 minutes, and then we can move ahead with the conversation.
That's directed to me, right, Duncan?
Yes, Damaris.
Okay, thank you. How can the human resource help align culture values, and probably also not just culture values, but also align all this change to speak to business and business objectives? Number one, I always say, don't just have your values written down, hung somewhere nicely, and have somewhere in your email communication that that's just not actually, it doesn't mean that those values are actually being lived. It may not necessarily mean that, but some people can have that and still they have moved forward. So what I would urge that you've given me some few minutes to speak about is, number one, unpack your values. Help your team to understand when we talk about, let me pick one of the most common values, serikali, integrity. Yeah, when you speak about like, let me say, professionalism or innovative, whatever it is, we are innovative, or innovation, for example, innovation. When you say our core value, because core value is what we call them, the values, we are innovative. What exactly does that mean? What is expectation on me as an employee as it regards that value? What kind of behavior am I supposed to exhibit for me to be seen as innovative? Because that's how it makes sense as a cultural thing, and also to the business, because it will drive my understanding, my behavior, and hence how I respond to it. And then, therefore, when you unpack value for employees, because of course you unpack with them, not for them, you are interrogating what is innovation to us. For example, you ask yourself, we have a value in Blue Concepts you call Blue Mind. We are blue-minded. Like that's one of our, we call them guiding principles. And this is stemmed from our whole philosophy of continuous thinking, of reinventing what we do and how we do it, and therefore help our clients also think from where they are to somewhere they can elevate their game at. It's borrowed highly again from the book called Blue Ocean Strategy, the principle used in that book. Therefore, when we say we are blue-minded and we have a recruit who's come in business development, how will they understand and decode this blue-minded? They have to find a clear definition on what blue mind means here. So that's what we call unpacking the value. So when they come, they're told in blue-minded, this is who we are. Every day we are actually interrogating our process. We're interrogating our approach for change. We are interrogating how we do our communication strategies for culture change. We are continuously changing. So when you come to present again in the team about this process, you have to also show us what is it that you think can be done better in that process. And that is assessed in every meeting we have, is also looked in how we present and roll out the change processes with our client. It's no longer the same 10 years. It has to be iterative and improving every day. So that's what you have to make it intentional when you say we are innovative, our guiding principle value is integrity. What does it mean to your company and to your people? And once you define what it means, because you want it to translate, to align to your strategic or business or how you live, because culture is what supports the strategy. There has to be something connecting to business. We just don't understand the meaning. We want to know how do we translate that meaning to a behavior that gives us an action, that gives us a result in line with our goal. So you define a behavior, then we say, if this is who we are in innovation, what we need to see every day? What we need to be seeing everybody behaving every day for us to say we are living this innovation. And therefore, with this process, you allow people to give you insights. We want to be thinking about when we say we do reports, for example, we need to see different proposals for formats for reports that are making consumable easily for our client or our stakeholders. And we need to see that happening at every evaluation level or every point of engagement with our reports. So guess what? When now you know that's very clear. When I have a report from Duncan or Duncan gets my report, they know this, they have this criteria 1, 2, 3. They have to look through the report to put some ticks that Damaris is thinking out of the box. We're not just at status quo. They change the format, and these are the reasons they say the format is consumable for their client who is in FMG because they don't have time or something. They justify that. So you see this person is consistently trying to think out of the box, to be more innovative in how they do their report. And this is everyday engagement with your supervisor staff. Then at that level, what do you expect when you give it medium term, long term? You'll be churning best perfect report being consumed 100% by your client, because I think that's a big goal. And once it's being consumed, probably you want to create awareness about your company, about your product, and that tags straight to the business, hopefully. So unpack the values. Number 2 is how do you align? I mentioned about this. When you have the KPIs straight away from the framework, evaluating the change, then you're always aligning as you go. Because once you do monitoring evaluation of the change process, whether it's from inception, midterm, or end term, these indicators are telling you the progress in terms of leadership, communication, whatever else that your employee engagement and change efficacy and everything else. So you're seeing how they're feeding straight to the business. When you talk about effective communication, it's a driver of action, it's a driver of information decision-making that feeds into the results straight away. Number 2, you know, if you're talking about employee engagement improving, you know that means it's a meaningful engagement with work. That means the KPIs that people have relation to performance, it's moving up and to the right again. Let me say that. So measure consistently. First of all, make sure you have the KPIs, measuring key things that align to your values and your business from the onset. Then assess them as you go on, because that continuity is aligning them to those values and your program. Also, one thing also you need to know is you're not the only one. If you're HR, who is going to be involved in measuring and assessing this whole process. You will work in partnership, collaboration of different leaders, your co-directors, your co-managers, your co-supervisors, to be able to mainstream this culture, because it's not your own, it's for everyone. And therefore, there's an element of capacity building, especially for the rest of the cadres under you and across you. So you need to also know as an HR, again, that there is need for building capacity for people to understand what is it that they are measuring, why they're measuring it, and how they're measuring it. So you build capacity for them to understand. Bonus AI, we are not measuring about numbers in sales only. We have to ask ourselves and find out, is this person exhibiting teamwork? If teamwork is one of our values, and I'm supposed to assess out the levels of collaboration with other people. They have to understand why they are measuring that and how to measure it. So there is need also to know that under your L&D or training, whatever you call it, there's need to create initiatives that empower your leaders to know. You know, the way we do empower our managers, supervisors on performance management, that is the process we need to empower them to have, for them to help sustain that momentum, measure the right things that aligns to the values that we're building, and also the strategy of the organization. The last one I'm going to talk about is communication. Yeah, communication, and this is communicate continuously and consistently, and the right people communicating at the right time, okay? You need to design a plan, and I said communication plan is an integral element of change management. So you need to have a communication plan that moves people from square one towards a macro growth. Yes, square one, you communicating why change, what we will do, how we look like, and all that, the process we are going to go through, and of course the leadership is coming in, chiming the support, and also calling support. You know, you're building this journey to telling people, now we are seeing these milestones, you're rewarding and recognizing this, communicating again, to being able to say we are actually receiving overwhelming numbers of clientele requests. That is also a communication in the long run. And one thing I spoke about, the milestones or benefits of change not being short term, not that you will not get benefits in the short term, that you're not deluded by the benefits you see in the short term and forget about the biggest milestones. Because if you understand change of human beings, there's a chance of spiraling short back in the short term, even after seeing good milestones. Sustaining it is what gives you the big. So you need to create that kind of communication design for continuously. And this helps continuously to align that. It's important for HR to remember that as well. So I think, again, I am at my Penta 5, defining metrics and what metrics we are using to measure. I think that comes under KPIs. It's also critical. It is not for you, HR alone, make it known, because expectations, once known, makes people really feel easy to respond to those expectations. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you, Damaris.
One particular thing that I don't know,
yes,
I forgot
please.
it, is you must reward and recognize, by the way.
Mm.
You must reward your champions. You must reward people who are changing, because that's how you build momentum for more change. Wale watu wanakuanga pale towards a die hard end, wenye wanasema hii kitu jamani, hii ni Adamari sijui na kina nani. Once they see their next opponent changing and being rewarded, they go, Allah, so this thing was for real. And then they start jumping. It helps a lot when you actually do the reward and recognition. Make it a strategy to reward your early adopters for the sake of the next momentum for the people, and monitor and evaluate your change. That is a must. That's how you convince your executive and board on progress.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Damaris, for that such an elaborate and extensive wrap up into that conversation. And from what I'm getting, I think it's very important for us to unpack value with employees, not for employees, but with them, and actually to articulate what really this means to them. It's very important for us also to evaluate the indicators and also the KPIs that we've put across. And you're talking about how it's also important for us to work in partnership with all the teams that are included. And you're talking about the leadership, you've talked about the people management, you've gone lower, you're talking about the employees and how we can also, especially through our L&D initiatives, we can be able to just educate these teams and just build their capacity around what we are looking to achieve. And lastly, you're talking about reward and recognition, which I think is very, very important, especially for the champions that have put in their time. They've gone across, if it's talk about UNGA, they've gone the whole country, they're talking about this change. We need to reward and recognize them. And thank you very, very much, panelists. I think I will stop the discussion there, but then we have not completed. I just want to pick a few questions that I'm getting from the chat. And I will start with the questions that have been typed, and I will just randomly allocate them, especially with the conversations that we've had. And the first question is coming from Martin Wanjohi. And then this question, I will throw it to Jane. Martin is asking, should a company develop their strategy based on the culture they need, or should the strategy the company adopts dictate the culture of the organization? So which one comes first? So Jane, maybe you could respond to that, and then I check if there's any question in the chat.
Thank you. Allow me, before I get to that question, to just add to what Damari said about unpacking the values. I'll give one example. As I said, we have moved from what we used to call strict to fast. We are now having fast. So we have fun, we have integrity, we have responsibility, speed, and consumer-led team. So in terms of those values, how we are unpacking them, it's really allowing the teams to interpret that value and tell us, show us what do they understand by that value. Giving an example from an experience we had yesterday where the finance team was to take us through that first value. And what they did is they organized, we have what we call fast sessions. And for this particular session, what they did is they organized a fun event where we all went into a room. There were games, and these are not just normal games. It's games that also let you learn about your organization and how do you bring fun to the organization. For example, I don't know how many of you have done Kenya at 50, that game. So they had a Kenya at 50, but this one, it was finance at UNGA. So they had questions about finance where they were asking, you have to, they have a statement and somebody needs to demonstrate that statement they have read, and the team needs to say what it is. So it was a lot of fun. So fun in the workplace, but learning at the same time. So that bit of unpacking values, allowing the people to do it themselves. Let them play out that value to you for you to really understand, because that is the way that it is going to stay. Yeah. So unpacking the values is really, really important. And then the other thing is just to realize that all the HR processes that we have, those are touch points for the employee. We like talking about employee experience. How are you touching that employee? Because the experiences the employee is going through, they really have an impact into the culture you're talking about. So you cannot just put the written culture out there, but down here you're doing the complete opposite. You're not rewarding people who are doing the right thing. You're allowing people who are doing the wrong thing to get away with it. That's not the way you drive culture. So all the processes that you have in for HR, their touch point for the employees, they need to really support your culture. Now, coming to the question that from Martin, organizations are not for culture. Organizations are for business. So it is the business that comes first, and then you get the culture that supports that strategy for that business. So you're not structuring your business based on the culture. Yeah, so you first understand we're in this business, we're operating in this environment. Yeah, what will help us succeed? Yeah, with what we want to achieve, the environment we are operating on, the resources we have, what culture do we need to get into place so that we can achieve our objectives? And then you go into the whole process of the culture visioning, of course, involving all the stakeholders, yeah, getting sustainability to build that culture, and then you get to your end goal, which is achieving the company objectives and the company goals.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane, for elaborating that to us. And I'll move really quickly. I see time is not on our side. And Paul Matthew is asking, some startups, especially found or family managed, quite often are the centers of toxic cultures. And this question I'm posing it to Grace. So as a HR, how do you navigate through the challenges that that are posed by such setups, especially while trying to implement culture change initiatives?
Thank you, Duncan, for that. When, especially for the family-owned organizations, I'd like to encourage the HRs and tell them, hang in there. You can bring in change. You have to start by a buy-in. That is the basic start point for any HR who is in an organization where there is a bit of toxicity. So when you are looking at culture change, what is it that you need to change about this organization? What is it that is toxic in the culture of this organization? Then how do you change it? How do you work around it? And what are the benefits that each of the stakeholders is going to get? Honestly, here you have to start with the buy-in of the employer. You have to convince them that they're going to reap some benefits out of the change. So you need to sit down with the owners of the organization and do something we call a value proposition. If we are going to change this culture, these are the benefits we are going to accrue. So once you get their buy-in, now you start working on the teams involved. So you work on bringing in the people, also getting their buy-in, having them participate and showing them how the culture has been toxic and how you need to change it and what the benefits of changing will be. But from the get-go, if you do not get the buy-in of the owners, it becomes a very difficult process. I hope I have been able to answer that question.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Grace. And I'm trying to dash with time so that people are not leaving before we close off the session. And allow me just to read in a few comments that are coming in the chat. And as I just skim really quickly on the, let me just check who is not unmute. I think we've muted them, sorry. So, and as I check the comment section with for the comments, panelists, prepare your parting shots for us. Now give us a minute, so just prepare them. And happy to hear from you. Who is this? Who is not on mute? I think, yeah, we've muted them. So just quickly, Norbert is saying, yeah, so I think Robert is just agreeing with what you're saying, Jane, that business is not for culture, but for doing business. We have to consider a culture that will assist a business achieve its strategy. And also, as I am reading this, I have a minute that I can allow one person to just make a comment in verbatim. If you feel you're confident enough and you can verbalize, feel free to just raise your hand, even as I'm going through the comments. Glenn is saying this is such an informative session and is thanking you, panelists. Norbert is saying that Damaris, you swallowed a book. I don't know which one or how many books that you swallowed. Norbert is saying you're just throwing in bars here and there. Rosemary is thanking the panelists, saying this is such an amazing conversation. Victoria is asking for a presentation. I think we can put together something to share with you, Victoria. Edna is also thanking the panelists, saying that her notebook is loaded with insights that she's drawing from this conversation. When he's thanking you, Damaris is saying that there's a lot she's learning, and she will get in touch with you privately. I think business is coming, Damaris. So you should be smiling. And then Vincent is saying that he is suffocating with a wealth of wisdom that's coming in. So I cannot see any hand that has been raised. I will give us 2 seconds just to allow anyone who would want to verbalize anything. Just give them 30 seconds to comment on anything. Not yet. Mwenda is saying, I see. Yes, Lily, go ahead and make your comment. And thank you for joining this session.
Thank you so much. I do apologize. I think I am one of the terrible culprits that had my mic unmuted. I think it's out of the excitement of all the learnings that we're getting. I just wanted to thank you all for taking this time. I think it's been such a great session, and it's been great to hear the appreciation of the panelists. But let's take a moment to also appreciate our moderator. Thank you so much for keeping the conversation going, for enabling us to also gain the learning, because without you, obviously, the direction would not be there. So I just wanted to take a moment to make sure that everyone involved has been thanked and appreciated. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Lily, for joining. I don't know where you're joining from. You can mention where you're joining from.
Yes, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Lillian Maingid, or Lily, as I've been referred to here. I am a communications and partnership specialist. At the moment, I work for a fintech called Kefia. We have branches in London, but currently joining from our headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lily. I just wanted the room to get to hear where you're joining from, but it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. So I will jump really quickly, and let me start us off with Jen. Jen, to give us your parting shot from this conversation.
Thank you, Duncan. I think what I would say is that culture is for business. I think that's the last thing that we talked about. Culture is for business, and we cannot put culture in a box and business in another box. They have to work together. Culture has to support the business. Then the other thing is that everybody in the organization has a part to play in building the desired culture. But the executive sets the vision, the managers implement the initiatives, HR is a champion, and the employees have to align to that culture. Then coming to the issue of time, as Damaris said, it is not an event. It is a journey. It takes time. We need to be patient. We need to hang in there. We need to really support, especially for those of us in HR working in toxic environments. We have to be really patient, be the people who are really counseling our leaders so that the leaders do the right things, because they're the ones who set the tone of what the culture should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. I will move right quickly to Grace.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you, panelists. Thank you to the whole team that has joined us today. My parting shot, I've put it in points. So I'd like just to quickly go through. The first one, listen to what is actually even not being said, because it forms a key element of the culture change process. So you communicate, you get feedback, you also need to listen out to what is not being said. Change is a team effort. HR cannot do it alone. They need the support of the top leadership. And one of the things you need to understand is people will do what they see you do. not what you tell them to do. So you have first to emulate what it is you want them to do so that they find that leadership of knowing what is expected of them. Training, training, training. Do it consistently, continuously. Do not tire as HR if you want culture change to come through. Communication is key. How you communicate, when you communicate, who you communicate through. So key. Break it down to a point where people will understand, even to the lowest level. Get the buy-in of all the stakeholders. It is so key. If people are not engaged, if people do not participate, they will not own the process itself. Support the people, that is mentor, provide the tools, whatever form of support that people need, take them for training, provide whatever it is necessary to support the process. Get feedback from the team, that is also key. Leadership training, Jane has just mentioned, is so key. If the leaders do not understand what is expected of them, at the end of the day, you will drop the ball somewhere. And second to last, momentum is so important. If you drop the ball along the way, you end up losing so many people, because people will move in accordance to the leadership momentum. As leaders, as stakeholders, you need to ensure your momentum is right. Then do not be rigid. Along the way, you will realize there are things that you will need to change. There are strategies that you had started working on that will need to be realigned. Kindly do so, and do so immediately when it is realized it is needed. And last but not least, celebrate the small wins as they encourage people to do better. Because honestly, culture change is a true process. I've shared my top lessons from the process I have gone through. My organization has been in existence from 1906. That brings us to 117 years. So some of the things had truly been embedded, and we needed to keep change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Grace. I will move to Damaris, and please don't forget to let us know when the next masterclass is coming in, Damaris. So let me hand over the mic to you to give us a parting shot.
Wow, I'm laughing to 1902. Yeah, and by the way, allow me to say, really, I'm very excited to see Grace talking passionately about culture like today. Yeah, and she is referring to the process truly as a process, and I'm very impressed because she's just not telling you that those things I had to put pressure on her to achieve. She is a fantastic HR, as you can see, teaching all of us on how to do it. So kudos, I'm happy to get that evaluation and feedback from this side. Now, yes, back to parting shot. I want to add something about reinforcement, because it's always sometimes gets forgotten. I think Grace is the one who was reminded me, and it's called structure. Structure, as we said, is also part of culture. Remember, when you build behaviors, the right things you have elevated, ask yourself, is the structure you have reinforcing them? Because if we have policies that are facing north and you guys are going east, then you'll have a problem. So you'll have to align your philosophy of compensation and all that, because now you need to reward, recognize people. And that is actually a policy, a structural issue, and many other things that are not good. Also, don't forget structure. Check whether it is responding to, because it can be an hindrance. When someone puts a question about compensation, why are you rewarding people this way? And our policy says, what will you do? Yeah, you have to align things, structure to respond to the culture you're building. Now, I like the answer that Jane has given us. Sounds like coming from a senior counsel, yeah? Culture is for business. You have to understand that very fast. And that is 100% and 50, very true. Now, you know, in change, you must have a wisdom, kind of. Sixth sense wisdom. Yeah. So when you come in and you're told, go fix the culture, you there, HR. And then next 2-3 months, they are going to down cost, to think strategy. That tells you need to have the wisdom of understanding what comes first. And I think Jane has really given us, candidly, culture is for business, not business for culture. But I've also found some areas where The biggest problem you have is the people who are going to design that strategy, first of all. Then the board chair or the CEO will wonder, when we go into that retreat, will they bring out what I want or what the business wants? So sometimes we may need to know what to balance for you to get, because some shifts have to be done for people to do. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of wisdom that goes into the change process. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm really have learned listening to this charts here, wisdom of Jane and Grace as well. And I know if someone asks you whether you can fix the culture, you have a real good answer on how you answer them, including your mkubwa, your boss, if they post that question. And you know, incidentally, how to go around it for you to get it right. I want to end my side by saying, what you condone, you teach in your organization. Whatever you condone, you say you blind an eye here, you blind an eye there, you hear this, you assume you're teaching them on how to behave. And that one principle of teaching how we live here. Thank you very much, Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies.
Sorry, there's a question you told me. I've just seen a pop in there. The next masterclass, right? Okay.
Yes,
I think it's a series.
yes.
We at Blue Concepts Africa dedicate April of every month to spotlight HR issues, and that's why you're seeing a series going on through April, and we do it over the weekend for obvious reasons, because people have come to associate this session on a Saturday. So we are doing the last session on next Saturday on the same time, same place, Zoom. You'll get the messaging the same way you got, but just know that we will be having the last session on Saturday. What I can assure you, it's always streamed live on Facebook. The Zoom is what comes with the communication. So I look forward to seeing you there. Kuna watu wamekuwa consistent, sijui tuwapatie certificate, but that's for us to think about it.
Reward and recognition. Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Damaris. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Jane. And as we draw to a close of this webinar, I want to, of course, extend my appreciation to the panelists. You have been amazing, just pouring from your wealth of wisdom with us. And on this other side of the, I don't know if this is now the blue corner, we have the participants, and they have been dedicated. We still have 80 plus participants in the room. I think we had 100 plus participants as we continued the session, and we just want to thank you for your time, your dedication. It's a Saturday, and you just chose to come here to just have this conversation with us. Thank you for the chats and the conversation that you've sparked in the chat. And it's been truly enriching. The discussion has been filled with insights, and personally, I have been provoked with the different perspectives that have come from the panelists today. And so, participants, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the journey towards culture is, of course, we've said it's indeed complex, but then you have been armed with the knowledge, with the strategy shared today. And these are just meant to better equip you to navigate this. I choose to call it a murky path. And so I think that's it from my side. I want to thank you for your active participation. And until we meet again, keep learning, keep evolving, keep striving, of course, for positive change. And I want to just make a request here on behalf of the panelists that if we can continue this conversation, especially on LinkedIn, let's talk about this. We've been here for more than 2 hours. Let's talk about this. Post on your LinkedIn platform the nuggets that you have picked today from this session. Feel free to tag the panelists. I want them to type their names in the chat so that you can just pick them and have them tagged in the conversations that you're going to have on LinkedIn. And myself, of course, my name is Duncan Gao. Tag me as well into the conversation. And it's been a pleasure serving you today as the moderator. Duncan Gao is my name. And from me, that's it. And thank you so much, participants, for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks as well, Duncan. I think that was really good, smooth ride. I must agree. I've
Thank
learned a
you.
lot on moderation. I really have learned a lot. I have learned so much from Jane. Mpaka I really need to book a meeting for something I need to know. Thanks very much, Senior Counsel. By the way, did you know Jane is a sorry, I almost said it. It's actually studied law and HR at the same time. Those people having
Imagine.
issues on industrial relations, employee relations, and manenos on restructuring. Don't think about someone else. We have the lawyer in the house. Yes, and we have Grace, the expert in HR. Consult with her. From practice, you will get new insights. So thanks very much for joining, everybody. And by the way, this is the time I allow people to unmute and make all the noise they were making to say goodbye and the rest. I really have enjoyed.
Thank you, the
Bye,
panelists, for the
everyone.
great insights. I really appreciate
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Yep.
It's been a great having
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Bye.
There's someone
Thank
even
you.
coming in. Have you seen that? Someone is asking to be admitted. Interesting.
I see them. Oh, Andrew.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I
ladies
see.
and the gentlemen. Thank you. It was worth my time. I can't wait for Saturday. I just wish we can extend this April.
Karibu sana, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Wewe ni wale watu wa certificate, eh?
Yes. It's keeping the momentum
It
and
is.
rewards.
Oh, that's beautiful to know. That's really beautiful.
Thank you, Damaris. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Duncan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Yes, Jane, you're saying something?
Yes, I was thanking you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed myself, learned a lot. It was a great way to spend the morning.
It was. It was. Incidentally, I had so much fun this side. I should stick this side. And we make
I-
Duncan the default moderator.
Happy to come in and serve again. Happy to do that.
Yeah. We need to bring you back. You really do it so well. So thanks, ladies and gentlemen. And the rest, I think we can allow Duncan to do that call off for the meeting.
Great. So I think I already made the call off. We're just waiting for colleagues to drop off, but thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure serving on this other side. There's a lot to learn, especially as a moderator. You have to be on toes and just to pick all the things that are coming up and just try to decompress that to the participants. So I've learned a lot as well. I have notes. If I tell you this is 3 pages. I have 3 pages that I've been writing.
When were you
A
writing
lot.
all that, Duncan?
When you're making comments, I am taking notes. So I have notes.
That's really good.
But thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.